Well, evening, everybody. It's lovely to see you again. This evening, we're going to be thinking about what is a diocese, and I'm delighted to have Howard Dellar with us for this. Howard, who are you, and why have I asked you to do this?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm Howard Dellar. I'm a partner at Lee Bolton Monier Williams Solicitors. We do ecclesiastical law at the heart of the practice, and we've been doing ecclesiastical law since 1855, I think. So we're steeped in it. I've been at the firm about 25 years. I'm registrar for different dioceses. Liverpool, Ely, and also registrar for Bangor Diocese, but in the past I've been registrar for Hereford Diocese and Guildford, so all different with their own issues. For many years I've advised the National Society on Education Law, protecting church schools, particularly during the Academy Revolution, which was is and remains a fascinating area, and do a lot of naughty clergy discipline, growing area. Seem to get more and more complaints, not necessarily because it's, there's more really serious stuff, but because people like complaining, and that's true in all walks of life, and lots of safeguarding as you'd expect, contested faculties, etc., etc. So every day is different in the world of ecclesiastical law, which makes for an interesting life.
Thank you. So I've invited you to ask you a particular question, which is, what is a diocese?
Well, the word derives from the Greek word, primarily meaning administration or management, and was used for the administrative divisions in the late Roman Empire before being adopted by the Church. So its origins are quite secular. A diocese is a legal division of a province under the jurisdiction of a bishop. Now, I'm sure everyone on this call will know that the Church of England is divided into two provinces. We have Canterbury, which has more dioceses in it, and York, the southern or the northern province. Each of the provinces is divided into smaller dioceses, which in turn are divided into archdeaconries and eventually parishes, deaneries, and then eventually parishes. So, for example, my office in Westminster is in the parish of St Matthew, Westminster, within the Westminster St Margaret Deanery, the Charing Cross Archdeaconry, and ultimately within the Diocese of London and the province of Canterbury. You'll probably have heard of the word benefice, which is the ecclesiastical office or living in the Church of England, consisting of one or more parishes served by a single priest, the incumbent. It traditionally provided the priest with a home, authority, and income, a stipend, in exchange for pastoral duties. If there's more than one parish, it's called a united benefice. Now, there are roughly 12,500 ecclesiastical parishes in the Church of England. There are over 120 archdeaconries. There are now 42 dioceses in England, and this includes the diocese in Europe, which of course is not in England, and Soda and Man, in that number, but outside England, as I say, geographically. The Channel Islands, Jersey and Guernsey, are currently looked after by the Diocese of Salisbury, following a 500-year association with the Diocese of Winchester. Now, there's a story.
It is indeed.
Interestingly, the modern Roman Catholic Church in England and Wales combined have only 21 dioceses. The Church in Wales has 6 dioceses. The Church of Ireland has 11 dioceses across the island of Ireland. The boundaries of dioceses have undergone alterations over the centuries. A number of such changes were made in the reign of Henry VIII, and there have been many other changes in modern times. the foundation of new sees were formerly effected by special acts of Parliament, but now can be dealt with by measures passed by General Synod and assented to in Parliament. There is a special procedure on the Diocese Pastoral and Mission Measure 2007. When portions of the diocese are transferred, jurisdictions over them goes to the bishop and ecclesiastical courts of the diocese to which they are transferred. Certain portions of diocese called peculiars are, except for certain purposes, exempt from the bishop's jurisdiction. For example, returning to the office, Westminster Abbey, and some places, for example, Temple Church, are extra diocesan. The province of Canterbury now comprises 30 dioceses, namely 14 founded before Henry VIII, 4 in the reign of Henry VIII, Gloucester, Bristol, Peterborough and Oxford, and 12 founded in modern times. The province of York comprises 4 founded before Henry VIII, Chester founded in his reign, and 7 in modern times. There are some oddities around the edge. The eagle-eyed will notice that there are a number of churches in Hereford Diocese that are actually in Wales, in the counties Powys and Monmouthshire. Alterations of diocesan boundaries are done through the Diocese Commission, Leeds being the recent example. That was a huge merger. There were lots of skeptics at the time, but frankly, with a bit of distance from that merger, I think we're sitting. It probably has been a success.
I think talking to people now that I've met, I think it's probably worked quite well in the end, although it went through pain on the way. So how then do these dioceses get governed, and what's the role of, I suppose I mean the diocesan bishop in this? Those who know me know I'm a suffragan bishop, so I don't have quite the same legal role.
Well, each diocese has a diocesan bishop, and as you said, usually a suffragan, though not every diocese has a suffragan. Again, going back to Hereford, they don't now, I don't think. The bishop of a diocese is appointed by the Crown on recommendation of the Crown Nominations Committee, colloquially known as a CNC, and the bishop is the chief pastor of all who are within his or her diocese. A bishop is called ordinary, as having ordinary jurisdiction in causes ecclesiastical, immediate to the king. The bishop is a corporation sole, with perpetual succession and a seal. Salisbury's Law of England states, "It appertains to the office of the bishop to teach and to uphold sound and wholesome doctrine, and to banish and drive away all erroneous and strange opinions. And as an example of righteous and godly living, it is the bishop's duty to set forward and maintain quietness, love and peace among all men. It is the bishop's duty to keep and review the provision of episcopal ministry and oversight in the diocese, and in carrying out the duty, they must consult widely such persons as they think fit." And relatively recently now, the bishops and priests' consecration ordination of women's measure introduced a very important change to the episcopate, whereby it became lawful for women to be consecrated as bishops. The principle which underlines the whole system of the spiritual government of the Church is that of vesting the government of each diocese in the bishop of that diocese. This dominant idea is to be seen in actual everyday work, in the everyday working of my office. No bishop, for instance, may presume to exercise any episcopal function in the diocese or another without the consent of a diocesan, and may be inhibited from so doing. Again, the diocesan bishop institutes an incumbent to the cure of a parish, and that incumbent has no rights therein until the institution has taken place. Likewise, an assistant curate has no right to officiate until she or he has been licensed by the bishop. Nor can a lay person assume the office of reader, for example, without the bishop's permission, and it goes on. The bishop is the centre and the head of the diocese and is supposed to be the focus of its unity. On being a bishop, you take an oath of obedience to the archbishop, and you are bound to govern the diocese in accordance with the law of the church. You must also conform, of course, to secular law too. The bishop has the right to celebrate the rites of ordination and confirmation, manage services in churches, chapels, churchyards, consecrated burial grounds, grant faculties usually done for the diocesan chancellor or archdeacon, or indeed licenses for changes to churches, churchyards, amongst other things. Each diocese has a diocesan synod, which considers matters concerning the Church of England and makes provision for those matters in relation to the diocese. The synod also considers and expresses its opinions on matters religious or of public interest. The synod may advise the bishop on any matters on which he may consult the synod. The members of the synod include ex officio members, clergy, and laity. Elections take place every year, and we have the joy of those elections in this coming year.
So basically, you're saying a diocese is the area where a particular diocesan bishop has authority.
Yes.
But surely there's a bit more to it than that. So what are the functions of the diocese?
Well, each diocese has a structure of boards and councils which are responsible for different aspects of the church's work, including ministry, mission, education. Functions relating to property are managed by diocesan boards of finance, whereas education are handled by diocesan boards of education. But there are so many different strands to this. Increasingly, the work of the ECO, the officer in the diocese, also within is managed through all of these different boards, etc., etc.
If I'm not much mistaken, there's something important legally for the Diocesan Board of Finance. So where does that fit within this structure?
Well, each diocese, for example, must have a diocesan secretary, sometimes styled as a CEO. Each diocese is required to have a diocesan board of finance under the Diocesan Board of Finance Measure 1925. The DBF is an incorporated company regulated by the Companies Act 2006, which holds property for purposes connected to the Church of England and deals with matters concerning church land and church money. Functions of the DBF including granting or withholding consent to the acquisition by PCCs of any interest in land or any personal property to be held on permanent trusts, holding any such interest, granting or withholding consent to parting with possession of property, functions in connection with the repair of benefice buildings, holding property or the proceeds of sale of any property transferred to it for diocesan purposes. And since the Charity Commission's recent interventions into dioceses, we now have to add consideration of safeguarding and behaving, frankly, like ordinary charity trustees. Really important that the charity trustees of DBFs understand that's what they are and understand that, and also make the books balance. Collecting the parish share, setting it right, making sure everyone gets that it's not some optional extra, but they must pay because the diocese has really important functions.
Indeed, and without that money, we can't actually have priests in the parishes because of all the changes that have happened over the last 100 years in the way in which, but that I'm sure is another talk. So you mentioned right at the beginning, you've been particularly interested in church schools. So where does religious education fit into the diocese?
Well, each diocese must have a board of education, must have a DBE, must have a director of education, and there are various ways in which dioceses establish that. Sometimes they're called what's called an incorporated board of education, usually a company limited by guarantee, but there can be CIOs these days since the Board of Education Measure 2021. Most dioceses, though, have an unincorporated board, and most probably these days are committees of the DBF. And they are looking after the jewel and the crown of the Church of England, all those church schools, and so many primary schools, 25%, I think, are Church of England, something like 5,000 odd across the country, helping with the provision of religious education, and giving such important life really to churches up and down the country. Obviously, the DBE also appoints governors. It is, since the Academy Revolution, often a member of an academy trust or a multi-academy trust, or the umbrella trusts of the DBE have become members, owners, if you like, of those academy trusts, and ultimately appointing church governors in those schools.
So, in the end, the diocese is actually something quite complex. And since this is the Church of England, we have quite a lot of law. How do we have a legal officer for this diocese?
Well, each diocese has got a diocese registrar, someone like me, and they will almost certainly always these days have clerks, and increasingly there are diocese registrars work together. In the old world, there probably was a registrar per rather than working together in groups, they were just individuals in firms in cities. But increasingly, more and more registrars work together in firms. There's also the diocesan chancellor, more important than the registrar, who's the judge of the consistory court.
So we've got final minute, your crystal ball. What do you think the future looks like for dioceses?
Well, I think probably Leeds will be followed, so there'll be more mergers. I think there will be more churches, sadly, that will be sold off. I think there'll be more intervention from the Charity Commission. I suspect that the Charity Commission will force the church to look again at the DBF measure. And I think we're all seeing already that there will be bigger, larger parishes. That experiment in Liverpool Diocese and Wigan, I'm sure there'll be more examples of that. I think we're going to get used to more independent safeguarding, which will be no bad thing in my view. And I think we will also get used to a wider definition of safeguarding than the church has been used to again, which will be no bad thing going forward. So lots of change, lots to keep church lawyers busy. So if any young lawyers out there want a career in ecclesiastical law, come and see me afterwards.
Thank you very much, Howard.